As OG also says, life as a K-pop star is insanely difficult to achieve, right? Because you need lots of time to actually invest into becoming a K-pop star. They spend years in their various academies trying to compete against hundreds of different people for the same spot, right? They spend lots of money to train and achieve the perfection that they need in dancing lessons, singing lessons, and even plastic surgery, right? And they put in a lot of effort to be able to compete on a world stage, right? So looking at training, they have to go through training for singing, dancing, socializing, as well as the way that they present themselves in public, right? So they also have competitions like Produce 101, where they literally go up on stage in front of the entire nation and international audiences to prove that they are indeed the best at what they do, and what they do is being a K-pop superstar, right? And we also agree that a minority progressed to the stage of mega stardom. And we all agree that once we see all the sacrifices that they have to put through it, they also will be more than likely to actually stick through with it, right? Because once all these sacrifices are achieved, they achieve fame, whether it be only in Korea or also internationally. They also achieve lots of wealth, and they also achieve influence over individuals on the ground, right? So the successes that they have are based on all the hard work they put in. So our question is simple. Why would they give this up? I'll take one from opening.
Yeah, you've literally committed a sunk cost fallacy. Just because you've done all of this in the past doesn't prove that it's valuable in the future. Romanticizing the past does nothing at all in this case for this individual.
I will prove why this sunk cost fallacy does not actually apply to the Koreans and the K-pop culture, because it is part of their culture to actually base all their decisions on sunk costs. A bit on that later. So basically our burden as opening opposition is to prove that life as a famous Korean K-pop star is greater than an average life. And basically my argument is this: is it really desirable? Is an average life really desirable, right? So basically some rebuttals first. We have the idea of living as an average star as an average person versus the transition to actually becoming a normal person. Because it is not just about living an average life, it is about living a life of mega stardom and transitioning into an average one, right? So some rebuttals. The first speaker brought up the idea of superficial relationships within the K-pop world, right? But they are still likely to happen in the world where they move into an average life, right? Because people will still see them as a star who was once a star, but they are now, somewhat famous. I could still get with them on a basis that people will know them, right? And he also talks about why they would lose opportunity to pursue values that they value, maybe education or so on, right? But they also would not be able to pursue this in its fullest extent if they leave their mega stardom life and try to pursue an average life, and more of that later, right? On that later. So my argument about why it is not actually desirable to leave their life of mega stardom into an average life, right? Simply based on this, the idea of expectations. Let's look at the Korean context, the Korean culture, right? Most of their culture is based around the desire to achieve fame, and this desire requires a lot of sacrifice, as I've already talked about, and they have been conditioned as entire peoples, as a culture, to desire perfection in all of these fields, right? And as a star, they have already experienced all the money, fame, and power that comes with being a star who has such massive influence. So again, I ask, why would they give this up? Because in this culture of perfection, people are trying to achieve the maximum in every field they can be, and in the K-pop group, they are trying to, in the K-pop field, they are trying to do this as well. They're trying to achieve the maximum that they can with regard to their talent, right? So this culture of perfection, as I'm saying, is pretty inherent in Korea. And as a K-pop star in a group, being a K-pop star in a group would allow them to fulfill this culture expectations that are placed on them, right? So talking about influence, they also have experienced lots of influence as individuals, right? As we can see, BTS has also gone and done a speech at the UN, and one of the educated members of them actually gave a proper substantiated speech that allowed him to show his education on the world stage. So they've already experienced lots of influence, right? So let's talk about happiness for a start. Because although there is, or there may be value in living an average life where they may be unburdened or whatnot, these are things that need to be experienced from birth to be able to enjoy them, right? So imagine if one were to go from being poor to living an average life. Over that, maybe I can see some contentment. But imagine if they are living with all the money, fame, power, and all that they once had, but now they are moving into an average life. That would definitely suck, right? They are reverting to mediocrity. So while it may have been initially desirable when they feel the pressure of the fans closing in, they have habits that need to be funded, right? Basically, right? No thanks. So what we're saying is that this disillusionment is temporary. Because even if they could have temporary relaxation from moving into an average life, we are talking about a K-pop star leaving a group, and this is the second dynamic, right? So they will not have a happy fade into obscurity. Because basically, if a member of BTS leaves BTS, they will be seen as a deserter. Because as we all know, the following of these K-pop groups is insane. These fans, these K-pop fans are not called, they are called stans for a reason. Because stan is a portmanteau of stalker and fan, right? So it is very unlikely for them to live a happy, average life when the stans are hounding them constantly and calling them a traitor and calling them a giver upper or whatever. Because to them, the group is life. And they won't be able to buy back the time that they would have or pursue a normal life to the fullest because of the pressure of these fans closing in on them, right? So they've already experienced life as a star, and the fans have already experienced them as an idol. And even if they were willing to give up all the good things of being a star, which is unlikely, they would still not be able to have a happy fate into obscurity because of the fans, right? So even if the advantages of an average life are good, once they hit peak, they could still potentially get all these benefits because once they hit peak, they are relatively obscure. So they would have been able to experience all the benefits that come with being a star, and also perhaps all the benefits that come with not being a star, right? So on our side, what we have is a K-pop star who is able to live to what they have come to expect based on their culture and based on their experiences as a rich and famous person. And we also have on our side the ability, the situation where they would not be called a traitor and a deserter for attempting to leave their life for a normal life, right? So Madam Chan, I hope to have hit you with the truth. Okay.
I like how the previous speaker before me talked about how the world will be better at some point if these K-pop stars were to consider living an average life. When in fact, this motion is a this house has debate. So I don't think so whether or not the world is a better place or who is happier, it doesn't matter. This is in the interest of the K-pop star in and of itself. So I think the first couple of things that I'm going to do, I think there has been a horrible mischaracterization of the Korean context of how pop stars work. I don't think there's people committing suicide every day, if I'm following the news correctly, and I don't necessarily think that families or things are as important in K-pop stars, because what is this? In the Korean context of stardom and fame and the music industry, it is more likely that they prioritize certain things before the other. As correctly pointed out, the cycle of fame is through around 17 to the age of 35. So the impacts of them saying that you will never have a family, you will never have loved ones to have with you, you won't learn how to have friends. I think these types of benefits harms are diluted, because at the end of an era, you have another 50 to 60 years to handle what you're going to do next. Let me tell you why that is more desirable than you walking out at your peak and how you anger a lot of individuals. No, sit down. So what am I going to do in this debate? First, I think it's very important to talk about the types of effort, because OG has been very unfair to discuss how effort works. They tell you that a lot of people work really, really hard to become a K-pop star. I think living an average life is also difficult. Who are we to quantify what effort looks like? I think it is hard to be a doctor, it is hard to be a plumber, it is hard to be a carpenter. All of these things require a certain amount of effort that you can become normal. No, sit down. That you can become normalized to. These individuals have already become normalized to being a K-pop star. It is true that on a balance of scales, one might be harder than the other, but I think because of the practice that they've had for numerous amount of years, it is something that they've grown accustomed to. A lot of individuals would claim that they are happily living in their life. Just a couple of responses before I go into the major substantives of my speech. So I think this bill is very important to consider transition, because the motion tells you that they would walk away from fame. I think that means a transition, and I don't think so they've proven that a smooth transition can occur. The only response they have towards Aaron's extremely important argument on the hatred of fans is that fans wouldn't do that because they're not that crazy. I don't think so. That's how it works in the Korean context, because a lot of fans are extremely proud to call themselves members or fans of certain groups and how they identify themselves with this group. Just like how when three, I forgot the names, but 3 individuals of girls' generations left, they were hampered from from fans and paparazzi for a very long time before they could make a comeback. And that comeback ultimately failed anyway, because nobody likes them anymore after they betrayed the individual groups. Yeah, okay, closing.
If fame is so great, why do Hollywood celebrities often hide their faces when they go outside, or try to make sure that whenever they go to eat or go to study, they'll try to be as low-key as possible?
No, I think there's a differentiation. You enjoy fame when it gives you some type of objective benefit, when you perform fans of what you're good at, rather than always being under public eye. And even an average individual would enjoy some degree of fame as long as his whole life is not being scrutinized. I think that's the scale of what is losing. Right? Just like the fulfillment argument. It is easy to claim that wealth is more important, but it is also easy to claim that just because you are absent of wealth, you've received a fulfilling life. I think a lot of these individuals that raise expectations from the work that you have done or the way that you are conditioned within the Korean context makes you or lead you to believe that the impression you have on people is extremely important. So now, let us talk to you about the exhausting life of an average individual, right? So I think the characterization of an average individual never came out from opening government. They talk to you about how you can do everything that you can do outside of a K-pop life. I don't think so that is what quantifies as an average life. An average life means you get things that are basically necessary. You don't actually achieve luxuries that you want to have, right? That is what an average life means. So I think this exhaustiveness is what actually Aaron tries to prove when he talks to you about the temporary disillusionment. People want to forego certain times, but people can take vacations. I think these individuals are also allowed time off. They can take sabbaticals. Yes, they will still be scrutinized by fans, but on a scale, at least they still attain a lot of their wealth and a lot of their priorities that they can still hold on to. Now, number 2, the non-exhaustiveness of wanting success. I think the characterization of the Korean individuals or Korean stars or humans basically is that we always chase more. That is why people are fueled by greed. 10 million is not enough. 100 million is the new target. when you reach 100 million, 1 billion is the target. That's essentially how privileged individual or rich individuals continue to grow, right? They never get tired of attaining unreasonable amounts of money. I think the same context applies to Korean individuals. That is why when they have saturated the national market in Korea, they continuously try to grow into the international market by singing English songs, or also trying to provide live shows within the American audience, the UK audience, because they're not tired of fame. They're not tired of continuously growing their fan base and continuously attaining attraction and adulation for the things that they do really, really well. So this is the type of things that give you fulfillment, right? No, sit down. Just like how people like us, when we stand here, we give a good speech in front of as many people as possible. We feel happy and we want to continue doing it regardless of the amount of pay that it gives us. It's very easy to talk about dropping it, but it's never actually done. No, sit down. It's already 6. What's the third thing I want to talk to you about? The third thing I want to talk to you about, how leaving the group naturally or retiring into a natural state is much more desirable and easy. I think another important thing to forget is stars are extremely influencing or influenceable. So this means that a lot of stars that retire, they earn enough of respect to diversify the economies. So for example, a lot of Western stars and a lot of Korean stars are also doing this, is where they start growing products or start having companies within these countries to attain a secondary income when they retire or they cannot provide for fame anymore. The reason that this can happen is because people understand that this cycle is something that is normal. And when people leave this cycle and diversify the economy, they can also exit fame to a certain extent and also continuously to fund the habits of a luxurious lifestyle. I think this is not possible under opening government's world, because a lot of individuals or industries will make it very difficult for you to and reluctant for you to have, because a lot of individuals don't like these individuals anymore, and their products that they would try to diversify the economy, or even if they choose to backtrack on their choice of going back to a luxurious lifestyle, would backfire. Just like the 3 girls from Girls' Generations who tried really hard to come back into the industry and failed miserably and are now going down the hope of average life. I hope maybe you think they're having a fulfilling life, but God knows that they're not. I'm sorry, I don't. Yeah. I think it is for those reasons the red part to oppose.
And go. Yeah, we'll agree, everyone.
What is this great smell?
Tell us your case.
Oh, Eric, yeah.
Look. Honorable Chair, I wanted to start with some Korean songline, but to be honest, I don't know Kpop that well. So here's what I want to start with. I'll start with telling you that open opposition has been extremely uncomparative to what the reality looks like. Second, what the Korean dream looks like, because all there is analysis of, oh, I want to grow rich, I want to get laid, I want to do everything else. That sounds like the American dream or the rockstar dream. I don't see why exactly that's the Korean Asian dream that they want to analyze so well. But thirdly, they don't explain to you what the comparative truly is. It's either living at peak or living as a fading, dying star. It's living literally, it's ending your career literally as BoJack Horseman. Like you're living a life where you're clinging on to any sense of fame that you can get. Where you're trying to make sure that you're trying to always keep up with experience, you're always trying to keep up with the looks that you are a celebrity. This means having to spend money over and over again to show that you're still a rock star. This means doing Botox or doing whatever you want to your face to look that you're still looking good, but you're just looking like some weird Dolly Parton machine. We tell you that the actual comparative is you're likely going to retire at age 40, they really want to, with no ability to have any form of diversified opinion, with people caring not at all about you and living a life where you have harmed so many people who did not consent to your life. That is the case that we'll bring to you, we'll talk to you. Why you, by being this active Kpop star, you're actively harming the lives of your family and your friends around you. Importantly, because these people did not consent to your life, and we'll also explain to you why you did not consent to this life in the first place. Closing.
So if the point of closing government is going to be fading into irrelevance, why doesn't this apply to you when you retire and eventually lose the fans and lose the fame as well?
Again, because on that house, we choose that. You didn't choose that. That's the comparative. If we choose to leave, we choose to leave. So what do we do when we leave? Because we think opening government didn't make this clear enough. What is living an average person? We think the easiest place is just live a low-key life, live, I don't know, on the suburbs of Seoul, do whatever you want, have fun. But if you really want to be properly low-key, we'll do the Disney route. We will perhaps live somewhere else where people don't know you're a Korean superstar. We'll change your hairstyle. You won't wear makeup, so the average person won't know what you look like. You do Korean, some plastic surgery to make sure you don't look the same. Dye your hair different. Change your name. You can always do any of these things to always live a different life. The moment you do this, even your fans might perhaps not even know who you are because you're not kicked on with 5 millimeters of makeup. What do you have? What does it happen then? Also, we tell you, who are these people likely going to be then? These celebrities are likely going to be people who are from a middle class or lower middle class within Korea. Why so? Because the scouting talents and the scouting agencies like JYP in Korea, they're not scout from those who don't have that much wealth. Just because Korean culture, they're not rejects the ability for you to work and function within an entertainment industry because they don't see it as being that important or that valuable to society. And also the Korean society, the Korean culture of having your kids take over your businesses means that your parents, if they own a chaebol or if they own their businesses, are likely going to want you to leave that business and want you to take over that job. Anyway, this means that you're likely going to become someone from either the middle class or the middle class. Why is that important? Because this means that the moment you enter these scouting agencies, you'll be coerced by your agencies telling you, hey, let's be rich. Here's what you can achieve. Without them telling you what you have to actually go through, plus not them ever having to tell you what is the value or what is the harm of being a celebrity in the first place. I think that's the important part. Because if the benefit or the metric that OO was set is giving you objective benefit, they need to explain to us why, one, that objective benefit will always be a benefit, and second, why do you even want that benefit in the first place? We tell you, panel, that what you're most likely going to be impacted by are standard Korean or Asian culture, which is more than not having your nuclear family, taking care of your own family, your issues of filial piety. Why is this important? Because we tell you, one, not only did you not consent because early on you did not know the bigger impacts. Second, your parents are most likely going to be coerced into you joining these scouting agencies because they are told, hey, you're middle class, your son will be rich, let's make him rich. What your parents don't know is that the continuous harm that's going to happen. What does that look like? When your parents going to be constantly hounded by the paparazzi or the media whenever you do something weird. The moment you make a mistake, it's a fault of your parents because they didn't take care of you enough. The moment you act out, it's your parents' fault because you are linked to them. This also harms even people like your siblings. Your brothers and your sisters are always going to be the person who's compared to you. They live an entire life being told, hey, I'm this person's brother. Why don't you look like him? Why are you as talented as him? Why are you as good as him? This means that your siblings and your family are going to likely face extreme amounts of pressure, extreme amounts of high expectation. This applies to your children too. Having high expectations of always having to live up to being your parent. It's literally the same thing that happens to Cristiano Ronaldo's children. Where they're expected to be just as a great footballer, just as a parent. An extremely unlikely thing to happen. Not only that, their parents and their families are unlikely to have any form of privacy, because they'll be unable to live any way that they want, because the impacts to your family will be impacted the moment any impacts to you will be impacted. Why is your family the most important aspect of this debate? Tell you one, because the Asian culture of taking care and filial piety is more often than not more likely going to apply to an average Korean person than the American dream that Omo wants to tell you about. Secondly, we tell you, while you perhaps in the best case scenario may have consented to being a superstar, your brothers, your sisters, your children and your parents did not consent to always be constantly hounded by everything else. We tell you, panel, that the moment you do live life on that side of the house and you die a fading star, you're likely going to be one person who's either more likely going to be depressed or angry and bitter towards their surroundings and their past. You'll always be reminded, hey, I was a star. You should respect me. You should respect me like I was that star. That I should always get special treatment because that's what you've always expected on that side of the house. This means that anger applies to your family. That anger applies to your children. The moment anyone shows you any form of disrespect, the moment you're older, the response is, do you know who I was? I am this person and you should respect me. Let me tell you that toxicity creates a bigger harm towards you, towards your family, towards those around you, because now they must face a toxic person who's still bitter over their lives if they chose to not leave that stardom in the first place. Proud to boast.
Madam Chair, the spotlight is blinding, but staring into pure existentialism is crippling. I have suffered as a K-pop artist, but nothing compares to the pain of realizing that I am not a person, but rather I am a manufactured entity, one that I don't know, and getting to know myself is the most dangerous process an individual can go through. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about the individual. This is an actor debate. Opening opposition failed to do the following things. They did not characterize specifically what this person has gone through and what their life has looked like up until this point in time. They did not speak about how we conceptualize happiness. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to deal with the alternative of government. Despite opening government just not engaging in the actor debate, I'll be merciful, I'll still engage with them anyway. So here are the actors' interests within this debate. I want to be happy. But the question of the debate is, where can I be happy given that in both worlds I'm going to suffer? All of my extension and my rebuttals are integrated. The first question, is control of your life a metric for becoming happy? I don't think it is. You see, the problem with all of us here is that we're not exactly a K-pop artist. We're not at the peak of our careers yet. We cannot prospectively see ourselves coming out or becoming irrelevant because our companies just consistently feed us an identity of telling us that we're consistently at the top. We performed in Paris. We performed in LA. Nothing suggests that we are on a downward decline. Rather, the comparative that happens in the world of government is quitting, not knowing that you are going to become irrelevant. Here's why this is the most damaging thing that can happen to you. All of the harms that occur to you in the world of closing government, once you quit, is not the fault of a company. You don't have anywhere to direct your anger to, rather it's your fault. You left EXO on your own terms, you lost those money on your own terms. Every decision that you made that messed up your life is yours to own. That's why, so like if we're still talking talking about BOJAC, he's like significantly more depressed in the world of closing government because he didn't end his own career. Wait, he ended his own career as compared to someone else doing it for him. That's why control is horrible. The second question I'd like to answer, can I truly be happy? Here's where I deal with opening government's conception of finding happiness. Here's the reality of the situation. I don't think there is such thing as a natural happiness. I think happiness is created for individuals and it's created by incentives. So let's talk about how I conceptualize happiness. I entered as a young person just not knowing who I was, and I literally don't know what it's like to be happy on the outside. The company has sold me an image of happiness which is performing. If I hit certain targets, that should make you happy. If I go to a certain performance and I get certain numbers of fans in, that should make you happy. You have to understand the context that I'm in. I literally did not go to university. I literally don't have friends who are my peers that can give me a relative scale to what happiness is. Let's just use it as an example. If two people are born in completely different scenarios, one is born in a city, one in an Amish community, both of them have completely different conceptions of what happiness is like. If you uproot them and put them in the same perspective areas they were from, they both become significantly unhappy because the ways in which they conceptualize happiness was bound by the circumstances that they were born into. In the world of government, here's what you have to do. You have to conceptualize happiness for yourself. But the reality is this, you just don't know how to because you don't know who you are. You didn't have the time to build an identity because your identity was given to you the moment you entered that group. That's why individuals like Tyon are significantly depressed, not because they don't know what the future holds for them, but because they just don't know who they are and who they can be. You have to understand that they survived that celebrity matrix for all that time. So on a first comparative, that's why you're likely to be unhappy. The second level, what does life look like after you exit this Kpop group? Here's why I deal with opening government's thing about living in the future. Firstly, I just don't think I can live a normal life. Here's why. I will be the most controversial figure at that point in time. Here are some reasons why. Firstly, when a Kpop group disintegrates, the action of a company is to retain the narrative around that thing. So here's what they're likely to do. They're going to throw me under the bus to make the group still look strong. Here's some examples of this. The way Tyon from Girls' Generations was trained or shamed by SM, I don't know if that's the right company, after she left. Or maybe Choa from AOA, after she actively tried to leave the company. These are how they protect the K-pop groups. I will literally become the scapegoat for this band failing. I will literally become the scapegoat for this individual doing it. I think the parallel is like Zayn Malik, like One Direction fell apart. He literally cannot get any other singing jobs because he's the reason as to why One Direction fell apart. Have a seat. But the second thing you have to notice, I've lived my whole life within a company. I literally don't have any skills. I haven't got a degree. I don't even know how to handle a credit card because my companies micromanage the heck out of me. What this means in totality, Madam Chair, is that I don't have any other conceptions of happiness beyond what I already have. To go through it is to go through existential dread. I don't think they tell you how you can go through that process. But before that, yes, sir.
Just because something is totally different doesn't mean it can't make you happy. But surely you should defer to the obligation you owe your kids to make them happy rather than depriving them of the basic things that everybody else.
I don't care about my kids. I was a K-pop star. I left them at home. I'll leave them here. Firstly, the second thing is, let's also talk about depression and pressure for a minute. And this is where I deal with closing government. So the problem with the entire gov bench is that they assume that the fame and stardom won't follow me to whatever I choose next. There is something called the smart person fallacy or the great person fallacy, where someone is good in something, they assume they're going to be great in everything else. It's kind of like how debaters who retire are suddenly like McKinsey group workers, and like when they fuck up, they're just really suicidal and depressed. It follows me there because you have to understand, I'm going to go from the top to the bottom. If I enter law school, I'm entering as a low-level lawyer, not a top star. All these sorts of things make me increasingly unhappy. But the second thing is that at the very best, and at the very least, I can't even have friends. Here's why. I don't know who my real friends are. I don't know who's in it for the money. I don't know who is in the fame. The comparative is me being friends with other celebrities. Here's why I'm more secure with them. They are like me. They already have fame. They already have money. There's so little that they stand to gain from me as compared to an average person that opts into it and an average person that can benefit of my money. The comparative is just knowing that I'm not as great. The last level of this extension. My fulfillment has been determined by what I've already known, and its impact. I am happy only if I get 1 million people to come and experience a concert. Similarly, in whatever else I do, I will want that similar level of impact. If I can't attain that, I'm unhappy. And it's just so hard For you to represent like a high-level victim in a law case, it's difficult. You're unlikely to get it. What this means is just gonna feel like you're not as great for the rest of your life. That's why refugees who were previously doctors just feel incredibly depressed when they end up as street cleaners, because they know they could have done so much more, but they're stuck doing so much less. At the end of my speech, happiness is an artificial construct. It's been created for you, stick with it. And at the end of my speech, hopefully I hit you with that do. You good? Okay. Panel, at the end of this debate, you will realize that our case will make you go, wow, fantastic debate. Oh, that was bad, wasn't it? Yeah. But what isn't fantastic though is the life that these people are going to be living. Because if you notice how closing opposition shaped the happiness of this person is based on A, the lack of consent and potential coercion that exists when they make the decision to be a K-pop star, which leads to a couple of things. Like one, you don't expect the furthest extent of which you're going to be a K-pop star. You don't know or you don't realize the kind of practices that these companies might have over you, something that we didn't discuss much, so I'm like, whatever. But more importantly, however, this shows to you that the very genesis of your happiness and the very thing that is supposed to be making you happy is not rooted on these decisions that you have made already, which means a couple of things. Like for example, once you gain the royalty of leaving as a K-pop star, you have the opportunity with the money that you've had already, which is already a happier life at 90% of careers already anyway. That means that you have all the opportunities and all the choices that will be given to you in the future for you to either A, identify yourself, find out what makes you happy, go to university, marry, settle down, be in a happy urban, suburban area, which shows to you that most of the argumentation of closing opposition is not conclusive happiness. What exactly makes them happy? What exactly is supposed to be driving this person? Because of how inconclusive it is, we're not entirely sure what exactly is that this person actually wants. No, thank you. I'm going to divide my speech into a couple of parts. Firstly, just a quick comparison of the meaningful life that opening opposition had. Second of all, I'm going to talk to you about some of the other things that makes up our happiness and why that is extremely affected once you are a K-pop star. Something that wasn't really properly engaged by the speaker before me. And then thirdly, because I was lazy, so I didn't know where to fit this in actually, backlash by companies. I never thought I'll actually see a backlash argument in K-pop debate. First up, let's look at the meaningful life that OO had. So they painted the life of a K-pop star throughout this entire debate as, you know, the audience that you're gonna have, the glamour of living a good life, performances, having fans, people cheering for you, and etc. But the problem firstly is, and I'll just repeat this again, it's very subjective as to how much you actually enjoy this particular benefit, especially given all the objective harms that these practices already, that these companies have in terms of practices towards you as a star. Like for example, all the decisions that you can never make once you are in these companies. Like for example, the lack of relationships that you most likely are going to not have because they want to paint you out as this ideal single person that people can aspire for you to be. Or the fact that a lot of your lifestyle are heavily dictated, not just recommended, but dictated. Do you know that, for example, a good chunk of the diet that they have to go to are just rice and seaweed, for example? Or the fact that any potential other decision that may have backlash by fans, like for example, the second you come out as a homosexual, for example, not only are you going to be heavily criticized
small with verbal abuse, but even your families are going to get it as well, something that I'll extend a bit further later. But the point of it all is that this is comparatively an unhappy thing, regardless of whatever happiness that you feel before this, because of the lack of choice that you enjoy in this scenario. Our side provided you that choice for two reasons. One, because we gave you the volition to leave and you have made that active decision for you to want to leave. But second of all, just objectively, we would argue that the life of a non-K-pop star is objectively better. And I'll tell you why. No, thank you. Like, for example, with the money that you're probably going to be holding on to and the life that you're going to be moving in, like probably change your identity or not, probably get married, and etc. There are a couple of things here. Like all the opportunities that you are able to explore, all the opportunities that you are able to have exposure to. Like for example, when you attend university, like for example, when you make further interactions with a lot of other people. Because for some strange reason, you can't make friends anymore under the world of government once you've left the K-pop industry. You can still make friends. Meaningful relationships are not stagnant. You can still have relationships and make friends and enjoy your time with your family, for example, especially given the context that we provided to you about how closely knit Asian families are, but I'll expand a bit more on that later. The point of it all is that you have more opportunities for happiness that is a lot more sustainable. And it is a lot more sustainable because it is all at your choice and all at your volition. What this then showed you is that meaningful life is a bit more likely under the opposition if I was this person. Nabi.
So the main claim you make against opposition at this point is that we don't know if there's potential gaining happiness in other areas. Given that this person literally doesn't know what happiness looks like because of their sheltered upbringing, why doesn't the same harm apply to you?
Okay, so this entire characterization of you being sheltered and not knowing what happiness is, I really think is an absolutely extreme characterization to be making as to how this person is likely to think. Because, like I said earlier on, your conception of what you see, what you enjoy, what your desires are, is not spot or is not stagnated when you are in that K-pop industry or when you are in that company, which means that you can still perceive and you can still see all of the future opportunities that you may possibly have once you left university. It's not as if they brainwashed you and took out all of your immediate desires and immediate interests later on. The fact that you can still enjoy many different activities afterwards shows you that you do have a choice. Now, meaningful life because of the Asian family context. So the categorization we've already given to you from Aziza's speech, no thank yous, is that familial piety is held in a very high regard by individuals in Korea. What this shows to you is that A, this is primarily because of the extent of which the familial obligation is. Let it be on your mother onto you to make sure that you are an X kind of person, or you making your mom happy, or you making your entire family happy. Regardless whether that may come in a certain form or not, the fact is you still want to make them happy and your priority is onto them in all cases. So what this shows to you is that a lot of the harms that Azim talked to you about is not only persistent, but very harmful. For example, your family being held liable for a lot of the behaviors that you're most likely going to exhibit when you are in the K-pop industry. Let it be because of your lifestyle. Let it be because of the fact of the relationship of of the stances that you take as a person. Let it be because of the fact that you are caught seen with another guy at some alleyway. I don't know. But the point is, it will all be at the behest of these family members, which is extremely harmful for a couple of reasons. Like, for example, the fact that whenever whenever these family members are whenever these fans are under the impression that you are potentially homosexual, for example, then these families are the first to get the communal hate that these communities might possibly have. The point, and like this entire bit about like I left my kids, I really don't care. I mean, like, you probably are expected to be successful. You're in a middle class family. You probably want to do this for your kids anyway, but now you can't because, well, your expectation, your relationship with your kids is very affected. That's why your kids most likely don't like you. That's why you're probably unhappy because of how much you held and high regard of your family members. With that being said, let's hear what the closing opas have to say. Thank you.
Let's have the last.
So I've been a big fan of K-pop for a long time. Like me and you, like play K-pop songs and chill and all this kind of stuff whenever there's a break in debate tournaments. The thing about K-pop culture is that there's a strong culture of ownership and there's a strong culture of stardom towards these individuals. And we think that it's particularly harmful. In my speech, I talk about two things. One, why the ability of K-pop stars to achieve true happiness is difficult, and within this issue, some delineation between opening opposition. And second, why the reaction of fans and slander will be much more harmful to these individuals, and why you don't actually achieve that form of happiness. But before that, just a few points of clarification. So arguments like arguments about kids and arguments about parents aren't necessarily pertaining to the actor. They do not tell me why these are important aspects of their lives. For all we know, K-pop stars might be selfish and may care about their own individual happiness only. So there is no link as to why there is any form of happiness to these individuals. But just to respond towards the argument about parents and siblings and stuff like that, there's just an argument against any child or any sibling that you have that is just more talented than the other. Take a seat. If this brother or this kid is going to go to LSE, everyone's going to start comparing him to him, comparing the sibling or the parents to the person that went to LSE. The problem is not because of stardom. The problem is just of a culture of people liking to compare kids with other individuals. So it's not really a problem that you are going to solve anyway. Take a seat. First question. Why the ability of K-pop stars to achieve true happiness is difficult? I think Naveen's quite clearly told you there is no such thing as natural found happiness, and often happiness is manufactured. Closing government says that this is an extreme characterization, that happiness or the conception of happiness is not stagnant, you aren't completely brainwashed, therefore you can achieve or find different forms of conceptions of happiness. But the problem is, if their characterization of K-pop stars is that their image is dictated, that they have no consent towards entering the K-pop industry, and they have no ability to be who they want to be, then I don't understand why there is no brainwash to a similar extent. So in those circumstances, I think there's inconsistent premises, choosing to put one argument over the other in the context of the desire that is completely unfair. Take a seat. But I'll go on further to tell you why the culture would persist anyway, even if you leave the K-pop industry. I think firstly, these are individuals at a young age of 10 to 11 pursuing a life to stardom. The question then becomes, why do young kids want to be K-pop stars? Why at a very young age they want to be like famous, they want to earn a lot of money, they want to sing songs? It's because there is a culture that tells you there's a desire of being famous, a desire of wanting to be as popular as possible. This is what opening opposition say. But the problem here is this, where we extend, is that leaving the industry does not mean that the culture, or there isn't a constant reminder that the culture still persists in everyday life. Because there's always going to be new recruitment for young children. Because there's always going to be a need or incentive to build more new K-pop groups. That means the companies will try their best to keep that culture of wanting kids, or the culture of wanting fame and wanting to impact millions of people and achieving all those goals and building music videos to continue persisting. Anyway, even if you leave the K-pop industry, there's a constant reminder from your parents that you have earned X amount of money for a long time, but you left it all to leave something else which we don't think is a successful child anyway. These are constant reminders that tell you that the culture would persist anyway, even if you leave those industries. Take a seat. And we think in the comparative, there are a lot more harms that we don't think were engaged by closing government in this debate. That's the comparative. Firstly, take a seat, we would to a certain extent concede that maybe there are a lot of restrictions to fame. For example, like they say diet, or you can't declare as being homosexual. We will first want to mitigate. We don't think that it's entirely like there's no consent at all. We think you are a popular K-pop star, you've been training for a lot of years, you can exit when you are training. When you haven't debuted, you can still exit. These are form of cultures. Like these are like notions of consent that have already existed because you opted into the K-pop industry. But even if there's no consent, we think that dieting, homosexuality, or things that are quirks to you is better able for you to control when you have fame. It's better able for you to control or play those narratives to your own benefit if you are famous and if people are willing to listen to you. South Korea is still a conservative and patriarchal and homophobic country. These are instances that you cannot escape from. So you want to be homosexual, you can't, because South Korea's citizens in general already don't like gay people. You want to eat as much as you want. You can't. Even like average citizens in South Korea have a strong stigma towards being fat. And these are instances where you can't escape from, but if you are famous, you're more able to control that narrative. People are likely to listen to you. You have some ability to do what you want to do better than anything else. Take a seat. Now, in this circumstance, we think there are a few harms that they did not answer. One is existential crisis, that often it is hard for you to conceptualize what happiness is. And even if you find some form of happiness or some form of benefit, hold on, I'll take opening. on in a moment, is that often there is a lingering question towards these individuals is this actually happiness? Is what I'm feeling happy? And often it's very hard for them to confirm with other individuals that this is forms of happiness, and rather you self-internalize guilt and you're more likely to be depressed in those instances. In terms of friendships, the reason why celebrities become friends with other celebrities is not because of a commercial thing or an image thing. It's because they're afraid that other people that aren't celebrities are going to exploit them, that they don't really trust them or they don't really know that these are friends. And in those circumstances, once you leave, there are also other individuals that know you have contact to past K-pop stardom, you have contacts to big names, and that's why you also can't trust anyone even if you leave the K-pop industry and you have no celebrity friends now opening.
Yeah, so your extension asserts that you're happiest where you are because you cannot envision any other form of happiness. But these guys don't live under a box. Even if it's loved up couples or friends that attend your concerts, are you really telling me these people won't want a taste of something they've never had any time else in their life?
Yeah, this is the similar argument to any conservative individual or any religious individual. Why do religious individuals feel happiness all the time? Because to them, and they've been brought up to believe that that is the most rational form of happiness, these are individuals that feel happiness through religion. We think it might be dumb for those that are atheists. I'm sorry if some of you aren't. But these are the most accessible forms of happiness because they've been manufactured to believe that is the best form of happiness. Lastly, why the slander is horrible? Because we think that there is a culture of ownership towards these individuals, and a lot of fans believe that because they pay money, they have a big stake in their idols' lives. That's why they want to. That's why they have a lot of hatred for these individuals. We think there will be more hatred. The reason why there will be more hatred is because even if they, let's say they don't hate the fan, right? Opening government said they won't hate the fan, but they still love the K-pop group. They still love the other members. Betraying your members would also damage the image of the remaining K-pop members and the K-pop groups. So the only way fans mitigate around those situations is they will start victim blaming the member that left. That's why the slander is extremely harmful, and we don't think you solve anything anyway.
For shake hands and
Cheers, buddy. Cheers, buddy.